My name is James Denbrow, and I used to be a lawyer at a distinguished law firm. I say was because there's this case I still get night terrors from. I'm not in a good place. Back then, I was at a point in my life where I would do anything, I mean anything, for money. Attractive, I know. Win or lose, I still took home a hefty amount of money from each case. My name had become respected at my firm, and with more wins than losses under my belt, got me the corner office on the 8th floor with a personal secretary. Ember Finn, my oh my, must I say, she was exceptional at taking dictation. However, when I was a spring chicken, new to the game, wet behind the ears, etc., etc., I would only take cases where I truly believed my clients were innocent. It was just something about defending people who were guilty and wanted me to get them off in the legal sense for whatever crime they committed. Those people had no morals, no remorse for what they did, and I didn't want my name attached to a sociopath's case, but that was my attitude a decade ago. It was in the middle of my 4th year, and I wasn't making the money I wanted or the money I thought I was worth. The innocent clients didn't have lucrative offshore bank accounts. I defended ordinary people with a regular 9 to 5, and my bank account reflected it. So, after weeks of careful thought, I talked myself into thinking money is money. I went against my better judgment and took cases where I knew the perp was guilty, and I knew I was giving them a free ticket, if I won, to get out and continue to do whatever it was that sent them to court in the first place. My first step over to the dark side was a domestic abuse case. The defendant was a white woman built like Ivan Drago and had a history with this sort of thing. When she sat down at my cramped desk in the middle of my law firm, she had an air of superiority around her with a smug smile on her face, which was understandable seeing how she looked like she could beat the shit out of me without breaking a sweat. I didn't need to ask if she was guilty. The look in her eyes, along with her bruised knuckles, solved that puzzle box for me. She asked me if she had any chance of walking away from this with no jail time. I had gone over the facts of her case. She was accused of throwing her husband out of the window of their 5-story building. There were multiple eyewitnesses. I told her I'd do my best, but if a plea deal was up on the table, I'd advised her to take it. She wasn't having it. She went on a mini rant about did I know who her father was, and how she was too pretty to be put in an orange jumpsuit as ugly as sin. Typical. We went to court. The husband had to be placed temporarily in a wheelchair due to the fact that he had broken both his legs in the accident, as she called it. I did my research. Turned out her father was a big oil tycoon, a billionaire in fact. She promised me a nice penny if I could win the case. So I blamed the victim. I felt awful seeing him get flustered when I asked questions that hit close to home. At the behest of my client, she had an overwhelming amount of evidence against her, but with a few twists of his words and a rage-fully outburst on his part, after I said he was the crazy one, I'd hoped I planted seeds of doubt in 3 jurors. Which is all it took. I painted a picture that showed my client as a model citizen whose only crime was a speeding ticket, and within the same stroke I painted the husband as an obsessive control freak. He had tabs on her at all hours of the day. Private eyes followed her around. He only did this because she cheated on him, and he didn't want her to do it again, so he had her followed. I knew this, and purposefully left out the adultery. It was the 3rd longest deliberation in my state's history, which was good. The long deliberation meant I had successfully done my job. The jurors came back with a not guilty verdict, and when she heard that she had a sickening smile on her face, it unnerved me. I had just added more fuel to her no one can touch me attitude. The thousands of dollars she paid me, though, was enough for me to swallow those feelings and continue to defend the reprehensible. Fast forward 8 years, I'm well known for taking high-paying cases for low-life clients. Ollie DeFranco's case sat on my desk courtesy of Amber. The client, Ollie, 38 years old, had been accused of assault and murder. The assault and murder were 2 separate charges. He was denied bail for being a flight risk, so I had to pack up my paperwork and go down to the jail to hear his side of the story. I remembered that I caught myself praying Ollie didn't match up with the evidence presented before for me. Once I got to the jail and told the guards who my client was, I earned a strange look from the black correctional officer that granted access to the cells. She just glanced at me with an obvious look of disgust on her face. The guard hesitated when she had to flip the switch. Another officer had to remind her to do her job. She did. All the while she gave me a death stare. Red flags were striping in front of my face, and yet I acted like a married man and ignored them. I sat down in a room where I was told to wait on my client. I was going over the case again. I tried to make up some justification I could use in court as to why he did it. Stupid, I know, but maybe he was framed or just had a bad rap. However, it was all for naught. Once the guy walks in, I got hit with his aura. Just so you know, I don't believe in anything supernatural, and I thought the spiritual world was as real as Santa Claus, but I felt it. An unmistakable sense of evil exuded from this man, who his nose scrunched up at the sight of me. Before he set down, the chains he wore jingled as he let out a chuckle. Well, would you look at this? You know, I thought I'd be long dead before I saw an asterisk jar in a suite. He laughed dryly. I knew the cold hard facts of the case. This man, Ollie, attacked a woman, a black woman, in her apartment. She reported he called her racial slurs during the assault. Once he was done, he spat on her and left. The man he killed in cold blood was Terrell Michaels, a black 17-year-old, all because he wouldn't turn down that *jar music. I knew all this shit before I came here, but as always I do my research and found out Charlie Manson over here had $100 million left to him. If I played my cards and said the right words, I could potentially come away with enough to quit my job and go into hiding. Assured I'd be shunned from the world, and most importantly my own race. Ellie was a racist prick, yet give the guy credit. He wasn't stupid. He'd done his own research and personally requested me, being well aware of my extensive record. Even though he found me and my people no more than apes with a sense enough not to shit where they play, he thought we should be put to work servicing the white man and kissing the ground beneath his feet. But he set all of that aside to give me an offer I couldn't refuse. He freaked me out the entire time I was there with him. Ollie had these small beady black eyes that peered right through me and saw me for what my people were going to label me as, a race traitor who was so driven by money he didn't care what line he crossed. My mind flashed back to the guard, but quickly shook those farts loose as I looked him in his eyes. He flashed a smile that displayed all 32 yellow teeth. I was in a living nightmare. In the weeks that lead up to the trial, I had death threats sent to my house. People looked at me funny when I passed them on the streets. I hadn't had the chance to speak in court, but soon it was time to lay in that metaphorical bed. February 4, 2009. I'll never forget the date. I wore a cream-colored suit with a light blue dress shirt and a red tie. The sky was a majestic blue. Cocaine-white clouds lazily drifted in the sky as I got out of my car. I saw a slew of people outside the courthouse steps. They were nothing more than rabid dogs waiting for their fresh bit of flesh. I didn't want to walk through the valley of the shadow of death, so I decided to use a side door, which was really a back door. A guard opened up once I showed my ID card. I didn't see much of Ollie since our first encounter, so when I saw him being hauled into court with a freshly shaved head, I groaned. It was going to be difficult to persuade the jurors, but maybe I could turn this into a positive. Maybe I could work an angle where he had to join a prison gang for protection. I couldn't though. This guy was just too much. Once the mother of the slain teen took the stand, she spoke straight from the heart, and the middle of her speech broke me. I forgive you. I believe you are sick and in need of help. She began to choke up. She stopped to gather herself, then continued. My son, Terrell Michaels, would have been the first to say he forgives you. He was the most kind, sweetest boy. He was coming home from a swim meet. Did you know that? He was captain of his team. This son of a B*TCH. This piece of *T. Ollie snickered throughout her entire speech, and at the end, he laughed. I was done. This act showed me, no matter the money, I wouldn't be the one to get him off. So when it was my turn to do my closer, I let the prosecutor's words marinate with the jury, then waved my hand, a signal that I wasn't about to get up. The judge told the jury to deliberate. I undid my tie's knot and sat back in my chair. I didn't even look over to Ollie, but I could feel the heat his anger made radiated off of him. You think I'm getting off? I mean, there were something like 4 white guys in the jury, said Ollie with a hint of worry in his voice. I looked over to him and smiled. Ollie, I think. No, I hope. They say you're guilty. I hope they put you under the fucking jail, I said, and his eyes went wide, if only for a second. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. That was the most satisfying sentence I've ever heard in my life. Only second to "I do," or "Go faster, Daddy." I couldn't help but smile. I looked over to Ollie to try to lie and tell him we'll appeal this, but he was already on his feet. "UF asterisk skin N asterisk jar," he screamed. I tried to scoot back, but he was on me in a heartbeat. Ollie wrapped his chains around my neck like a makeshift noose and began to choke me. I couldn't breathe. I was close to blacking out before the bailiffs pulled him off me. They drugged him by his collar and hit him with their billy clubs, but he still screamed, "You're dead. I will ruin you." I could still hear his voice even from the hallway. I moved on. Want a few more cases? Shit, I settled down with a red-headed girl from Maine. Not married, but I realized I didn't want to leave her when she word for word mouthed along with my favorite TV. She was a keeper. I loved her. I loved how goofy she was. I loved the way she picked up food off over 4 quickly, under the 5-second rule. She's dead. Home invasion. But the officers didn't believe me. I awoke with blood all over me and a knife in my hand. I looked over to Rachel. Her baby blue eyes were agape and glued to the ceiling, frozen forever in a state of fear. The image of the hole in her shredded throat seared into my memory as I puked immediately. When asked if he had anything to do with the attack, Ollie flipped out and bit his own tongue off. He was transferred to a mental facility to serve out the rest of his life sentence. My best friend, my Rachel, was buried by her family, with me behind bars. They refused to take my money to pay for the funeral, convinced I had filleted her while she slept. I've spent several months behind bars and came to the logical conclusion: I'm going to kill Ollie DeFranco. I've been sharpening my toothbrush for a few days and plan on stabbing a guard with it if I do it right. Say, scrawling "Hail Satan" with his blood in an upside-down pentagram. I should be declared insane. There's only one mental health place in our town. See you soon, Ollie. I'll make sure you feel every bit of pain you put me, though. Tomorrow I set my plan into motion. Wish me luck.